It's Friday. New all-time high on Thursday. Strong close, very strong close. Peeling back a little bit, we got some earnings to talk about, some real good earnings, some surprise guidance. Boeing being Boeing. Once again, going to lose a heck of a lot of money. AXP, buy the dip or buy the dip. Netflix getting some positive reinforcement after those big earnings. Special guest, 810, the cow guy. We got some questions from one of Dennis's buddies. We're going to end the week on pre-market prep.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
All right, good morning, traders and investors. I hope you got all that intro in. I think they're pretty good. New all-time high yesterday. I'm going to ask Dennis about the last 10 minutes. Wow, I stepped away and 15 handles just like that. Down 6.25. But remember, we started the day in the red yesterday. All-time closing high yesterday, 61.52.50. The buck pulling back under 108 here, down 47 cents. Nice pullback from the 110 area. TLT flat, 86.86. USO battling at the $80 level, up 78 cents, 79.99. GLD back at yesterday's high, up 205, 256.12. Silver back over 28, up 37 cents at 28.14. And Bitcoin finding a trading range here. That's up $2,365 at 105,780. I'm going to remove my charts. I'm going to bring in Triple D and CF. I still got to get a nickname for this guy. I'm so good at nicknames too.
It's CF.
Okay.
DD and CF.
It's just too many initials. I don't know.
Two letters. It's like a ticker symbol with 5 letters. It's just annoying.
Yeah. What do you guys? OTC stocks? I mean, I'm not going to do
CF works. Great symbol. Great stock symbol.
Dennis,
we'll just call CF
I stepped away.
CF Industries. I like that. That's Christian Fromhertz. CF
Was there
Industries.
big buy imbalances yesterday?
On the close or the open?
Closed, on the close.
I didn't.
No?
This, I don't think. I don't remember. What did we
Dennis,
get checked in this close? Yesterday's a long time ago. I remember trading, I guess we did. I guess we did get checked in the close. I don't remember any buy imbalances, but obviously we're pushed into the close. I mean, this is what we do, man. We sell off a little bit. They come and they buy the dip. They can't help themselves. Buy the dip mentality is just rampant out there. We said it yesterday, buy the dip. Sell the rip a little bit, but they really buy the dip right now. They're all about buy the dip. Trump pump, buy the dip. Can't lose in stocks. They minting coins all over the place. Sorkin coins out there apparently now. They were talking about on CNBC. Didn't even know somebody minted his coin. Maybe we're getting a Joel coin. That's what we need.
You know what? My nephews mentioned that so long ago. Yeah. And and my last name is Elconin, but
Elconin. There you go. Who's minting that? Elconin.
I'm going to wait till I'm president of the United States before I do that.
I like the Elconin. Yeah, there we go.
I'm talking about this
coin idea for
10-minute pop right here, Dennis, from 350 where my cursor is. And it's just, it's important. The late money a lot of times is smart money. So I was looking to see, hey, we were just going to open up unchanged and just float up in uncharted territory. But we just got above yesterday's high just by a couple ticks and pulled back. So big level, potential double top. But you didn't hear that from me right there at 61.54, 61.56. So a lot of big stories here this morning. Do you want to start with the good, the bad, or the ugly?
The ugly. Give me the ugly. Is there any ugly? What's ugly?
Well, they always buy the dip. But
American Express was ugly, and they bought the dip. They listened to the pre-market show because American Express was down 7, and we were just talking about what we're going to talk about. And obviously, American Express was top. It was down 7 points, and I'm like, wow, I was saying this is a stock that had a high bar and the earnings were fine. This is a stock they probably buy the dip in. I didn't even get a chance to say this on pre-market prep because they've already bought the dip. So I mean, this is just this market right there in cap. This just shows the best example of what this market's all about right now. So they hammer American Express down to like 3. What do we get down to? 315, 314? We get that low?
Lower, Dennis, lower.
Oh, gosh, these algos, antsy in their pantsy again. Man, we need a fade algo fund. That's what we need, a fade algo ETF. That's what we need.
312.
312. Algos, stupid. This stock was going to get bought. It's loved. It wasn't that bad, the report. And there it is. It's already back. Unbelievable.
Whew. Okay, I'll just look at unchanged after that dipsy doodle. You got a little pop, you got a drop. Actually, you did get back to unchanged. We've already traded through it quite a bit, so let's look at that. All-time closing high. Let's just call it 326 your number of the day. The high from yesterday, 26.28, all-time high. All-time closing high, 25.87. So you get a firm 326 bid in here, then maybe you'll see that pre-market high of 331.69. You want to stick with the good here? Let's stick with the good.
Okay.
One of Dennis's favorite stocks.
Well, maybe, Christian, you have any thoughts, American Express, before we move on
Christian.
here?
It's just, I mean, look at the run into the earnings report, and AXP, Visa, MasterCard, they're all doing the same thing. I mean, I get antsy. I don't know about you guys, but I keep hearing about like possible regulation of the fees and so forth. So sometimes, like, as soon as I feel like I get into it, now I do have a long-term position in AXP, but I don't own Visa and I don't own MasterCard. And one of the reasons why is because I always hear about, oh, they're gonna crack down on the fees that they get, and I feel like whenever I'm in one of those stocks, I hear that rumor, and it gets me because they've been such great performers. So, do you guys feel that too, or no?
They've been unbelievable. I mean, MasterCard, and I talked about this lots on the show. I bought this back. My buddy Chris was like, "This is a stock, put in the long-term portfolio. You're gonna like it." I bought this back, I think, just after the IPO. Like, I think it came out 2008 or 2009 when they went public, MasterCard. I bought it right around 2010, just after the financial crisis. It split so many times. My average cost base on MA was $11. $11. I ended up finally getting out of it all in the 300s, and I was up 2,200% in it. That's what, that's why, from long-term investing, sometimes, you just forget about it. And, buy good companies at reasonable valuations, and that happens. That's your dream scenario there. So, yeah, I mean, there's, obviously opportunities in trading. There's great opportunities investing if you can find those good companies at reasonable valuations. But how long have you been at American Express? A long time?
I think it's about a year. This is in my trend portfolio.
Been a good year?
What's that?
It's been a good year for it.
Yes, it's been a real nice year. So I just some of these names, like, I try to sit long for earnings, but yeah, I mean, the name just really ramped into the earnings report. So yeah, before you even said buy the dip that was going to happen, it had already bought the dip. So nice call.
Already bought the dip. Yeah.
Okay, sticking with the good here, Nova Nordisk, NVO. Even though the overall things have kind of cooled off a little bit, they completed phase 1B/2A trial with subcutaneous amycretin. We should add Brent on for this. And people overweight or a bit. Who cares? Wow, big pop, gap into a gap area between 90 and 110. I would say keep an eye on that pre-market high of $93. A lot's already traded, obviously overseas, but gapping into a gap here for NVO.
So, okay. So this is good news. I mean, it's popping. It's already obviously traded over there. The weight loss drug, story here has went pretty cold though. So I'm not chasing this here today because, again, I don't think, now you're in a downtrend. You're getting back up. Some people who have been buying this in the last month are being made whole. I think eventually this leaks it away. I don't think, because it's an ADR and it's trading overseas, I don't think this one that's just going to give it back today. It's already been trading for hours over in Europe. So, I mean, the market's kind of priced where it wants to be. But I think we need to consider that this weight loss drug story, even though, you're getting another pill and this is what they want is another pill. And this obviously has implications for VKTX. This obviously has implications for Lilly. Both those stocks are trading lower on this news. I don't think I'm chasing this Novo, unfortunately, here. I think like a major resistance up at 100, which is another $10 higher. But I just feel like the story's gone cold. The trend is broken. I think, Pops probably get sold into this just even from a technical basis.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Yeah, that and Lilly, I mean, this Lilly chart is just, I mean, it just doesn't
Lilly's
look
broken.
good.
I mean, the stock is like, the story is cool. The stocks, come off significantly. It's trading with a ridiculous valuation relative to any peers that don't have a weight loss drug. And the story's gone cold. So I just not getting on the Lilly bandwagon here either. I mean, I got beat up on the VKTX. I have a little piece left, 10% of the position or something like that, maybe 20% of the original position. But, I took a loss on it. And I obviously, this was a really hot story in 2024. It's just overall, when you lose your leaders like Lilly did, and Lilly was the leaders, you got to be selling the laggards of the industry too. And Lilly's been leading the charge on the downside on all these things. And I mean, I think a big turning point, again, just talking about it, was RFK. I mean, he's about health, and he's going to be, in charge here. Just talking, about, these drugs going to get covered. I mean, there's going to be, a fight there too. So lots to think about from those implications too. But I mean, on election day, I mean, Lilly was gapping down, and Lilly kept it, and it really hasn't recovered since then. So, could you argue?
Dennis, sorry to interrupt you, but
yep.
When we have an 810 guest, we can't bring them on.
I forgot about the 810 guest.
No, I forgot.
Here. We'll get back to the Lilly talk after.
Brent's in the background.
Story's ice cold.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Let me get ready for our guest here. Scott Shellady, a.k.a. the Cow Guy. And I tell you, every day, the day I say, our guest tomorrow is going to be, and then I give him a little bit of hint, and everyone gets excited. Scott, how you doing on this?
You tell a good tale, that's for sure. I'm doing well. I can't believe we're almost winding up the first month of the year already. The older I get, the faster it goes.
You can
How
say
was the first month for you, Scott? Like, what are your thoughts? I mean, we've had this value rally, really, a turnaround kind of from leaders to laggards for a while, but now all of a sudden, Trump's got the AI stocks popping back, and those AI stocks that were showing a little bit of weakness a week and a half ago are now leading the charge here again. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to give you my 40,000-foot view. I'm excited about what can happen. I will buy in a little bit to the the animal spirits being unleashed. I like that. And after all the regulation and the garbage that we've had to go through the last 4 years, it's understandable. However, there's always a however. If our economy was a football team, our offense is AI, high tech. We're like Kurt Warner, the greatest show on turf. Okay. I mean, we've got a really potent offense because we've got some really exciting things. You were just talking about some of them too, with some of these weight loss drugs and the likes.
Yeah.
But we've got a bad defense. We still have, we're going to be 40 trillion in debt in about 380 days. We got some problems. I think inflation is going to definitely be stickier than everybody thinks it's going to be. The reason why we didn't go into a recession is because we had so much government spending. We bought ourselves out of a recession. If Doge wants to cut government spending, what's that going to do to the economy? If you're going to really wage war on our M2 and the money supply, well, it's going to hurt the economy. So we've got a bad defense. But I do think that our offense just outperforms our bad defense. So I think this year we're going to win a lot of football games, but it's going to be 87-77. That's what it's going to have to be.
So S&P, looking at where we are now to where we end the year, I think you're calling for a lot of chop if you're calling that, but also where you think we're end up at 20% higher again, another 20% year? More of a fight.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be 10 to 12% higher with a 10-year yield between 4.7 and 5%. I mean, I think the 10-year yield is going to stay high. I do. I mean, the bond market's bigger than the equity market, and they're telling us to slow our roll here. It's not going to be that easy. I definitely think that he's going to struggle getting prices down. I mean, as long as that CPI is positive, prices are rising. And so you're not going to see all these people, even if CPI comes down, it doesn't equate to lower prices. It's higher prices going up slower. And so if he wants to really see lower prices, he's going to have a negative CPI. And a negative CPI, folks, is deflation. Yeah. And that's not going to be good. So he's going to really have to, we're going to be in the huddle, and we're going to have to score a lot of points to make sure everybody's happy because our defense stinks.
Talk about tariffs here just before we move on from this conversation, because I want to get your thoughts here as well. And this ties into, obviously Trump, would like to have deflate or like to have prices come down, or at least, not as much inflation as we've had. I feel, and I've said this for a bit though, like tariffs are inflationary, like some people argue that they're not, but, you're coming in, you're jacking up the price of the goods coming in. Sometimes it's got to be passed through. Companies don't operate at losses. They try not to anyway. So I don't think Walmart's just going to eat, higher tariffs here. That kind of goes opposite to, what he's trying to accomplish here to a certain extent. Not.
Now, that's why the bond market, I think, is staying higher. Just like I said, I mean, the 10-year yield's telling us that I'm not going to buy into the fact that it's a guaranteed inflationary issue when it comes to the tariffs. I think that it can be a slightly inflationary. And as Jamie Dimon said yesterday in Davos, if it's slightly inflationary, but it helps the country a lot and preserves our border and its national security, well, then that's a small price to pay. So I think they're already starting to beat the drum of this might be an issue, and we're going to have probably higher inflation. It's going to be harder to get these prices down. But with the tariffs, there's so many things that can happen when you do raise those tariffs. It's not a 1-to-1 kind of, if we raise tariffs 10%, we're going to see prices go up 10%. Sometimes, like the last time we did it with China, the homeland China ate a lot of that 10% or 25%, whatever it was. Sometimes the manufacturers eat a little bit of it along the way. People eat a little bit of it. So by the time it gets to the consumer, it might be 1%. It might be 1.5%. So, and then also the consumer, they can make a choice too. They can change and buy something that's not been tariffed from another country. So there's so many things. I think there's probably 4 ways that you can lessen the blow of tariff inflation, but it's still inflationary. And again, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. If they're stealing $500 billion to $1 trillion worth of our technology code every year, well, then you got to start somewhere.
I have a question for the cow guy, because this is definitely, so far we've seen, because I think coming into this new administration, we've heard a lot about the T word, and so far it's been, it seems like it's low T. He hasn't dropped the hammer in terms of saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And he's kind of been gentle around this. But if we remember from the first administration, there were, times where all of a sudden, this would hit the tape and so forth. So I guess my question is, how do you position for a little bit of the unknown? Is it you buy a little SPY puts when we're at highs like this after we've had a nice run? Any ideas there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for protection. I've managed money and other people's money for a while myself, and here's my mantra, and hopefully it helps answer your question. But if the market's going to be up 20%, or at least the benchmarks of the S&P, I don't have to match it. I kind of want to be in the neighborhood 15 to 21% if we're up 20. I mean, that would be fantastic for me. But when we're down 20, I want to be down 1. I want to be down 1 or 2 or flat even, right? Because as you guys know, probably running other people's money, that's when people get killed. You don't get killed being up 16 and the benchmark's up 20. You get killed when you're down 20, or even more, 25. And I lose customers because that's when they all bail on you. They think you're an idiot. So I'm always about being in the ballpark on the way up and protecting on the way down. And I absolutely believe you have to do that when it comes to these tariffs. It's especially a touchy subject with me too, because I come from an agricultural background, and they were in the crosshairs the last time around. In the end, Trump made them whole with some special checks, but it was a very bumpy ride, and they didn't know where they were the entire time. It's pretty stressful when you don't know if you're in business or out of business until you get a check from the government because China started to stop buying your product. It looks like this time around, the bazooka has not really been pointed at agriculture. It's I think we've started the first things that started have been like the chip sector and the high tech sector. I think that's where there's some initial movement when it comes to tariffs. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm absolutely interested in protecting on those cheap puts. Anything that you can do to make sure you've got some powder dry, because you're going to get a 10 to 12, 15% downdraft, or I would say not to sell a thing. That's where you want to be buying. So anything that could put you in the position to be buying on those moves is what I would do.
Big fan of yours, texting me actually, Jeff. He's a huge fan of yours, Scott, and he's texting me a question for you. He says, ask Scott, because you're talking about agriculture, so it's a good time, to opine on deer. He wants to know what you think about deer. He says he knows Trump loves farmers. Do you think deer is setting up for a good year? Oh, I kind of made a rhyme there.
I think I just was in Kentucky speaking at Murray State 2 days ago, and there was a few other speakers there that I really respect, and I speak with one of them a lot myself. And I think that we're setting up. Agriculture here has gotten beaten up over the last 18 months, big time. I mean, big time. And I think that we're setting up for the farmers to make some money in 2025. Maybe not so much in 2026, but 2025 could be a very good year because, and I don't want to get into all the machinations, but when you look at things for the last 800 years, and I'm talking about seawater temperatures, I'm talking about sunspots. I mean, these guys get into it, and the people that I respect have been looking at that stuff, and they're saying that, hey, this could be a pretty hot year. Things are lining up. A lot of things are lining up. And if that's the case, that means prices are going to go higher. And if that's the case, Caterpillar and Deere are definitely going to be beneficiaries.
Let's go. Okay, let's move away from agriculture just for a second there. Then I want to take you back into what you were saying, the tech trade, and talk about offense here. We've had one of our offensive leaders, Apple, is struggling here. And again, we pounced a little bit off the 220 area, which you'd think it would have bounced there, but we're not getting away from it here. It's up a little bit this morning. What about losing, one of our big players there, Apple? Is this an issue for the market?
It could be, but I'm not ready to throw the towel in. I think, some people, again, more people that I respect and the research that I follow, they said that you're going to hear a lot of AI is over. They're going to be picking stocks that are going to be, dead going forward. There's going to be a lot of that chatter, but they believe that we're still in the second or third inning. That gives Apple a lot of time to, reinvigorate. So I'm not going to call a top there. I'm going to still give them some time, but I still think that we're going to put it this way. We're going to have a fantastic offense because I still feel like, you just mentioned tariffs, but we still, with that 10-year yield, it reminds me of 1995. We're going to have, a 4.5 to 5% 10-year probably all year long. So let's say it's averaging 4.75. Stocks are going to have to get used to that environment. I don't think that's a 25% environment. I think that's a 10 to 12% environment. And so, if that's the case, then if that's what we get out of Apple, that's fantastic. So it's not going to be a home run year. That's going to be a healthy year, but I still think that AI and tech and high tech and some of these biomeds are going to be what's we're going to have to latch onto this year.
I want to go back to the agriculture here a little bit, and someone asked about a stock here that I just haven't looked at in a long time. In the agricultural space, the chart looks absolutely horrible. I guess if you're following sell the top of the page, buy the bottom of the page here. FMC. Any thoughts on that company? FMC Corp.
I'm not that familiar with that name, so give me
a pass. We get a pass, but you know what? I am so upset with myself because you've been coming on the show for years. And never once have I asked you for your take on live cattle.
That's a great one. It's I don't know. Okay, as cattle prices go higher, it gets harder to make money, and that's one of those weird products that everything tightens up at the top, and it's really, really, really difficult for those folks to make money. So right now they're looking for answers big time, and I get calls at home about it now. And I would say this, we just went over $200 in live cattle. I mean, it was a historic move a couple days ago, if not yesterday. We're getting close to the top. We're going to start to replenish the herd. That's what we're talking about here. We have less cattle. We got hurt with the drought and the likes, and we really depleted our cattle numbers. But we're getting close to starting to turn that corner. And when we do, there'll be a pretty big break. But up until now, you got to be going hand to mouth if you're a rancher. Make sure you are absolutely hedged on everything with puts to the downside or some sort of insurance. Because when we get to these heady highs, you got to think to yourself, what's the new bullish move that's going to let these longs out? That's how I have to look at it. And there isn't a lot on that menu that's going to shoot us higher to let the longs out right here. And there's some people that are long. I mean, there's some funds in there that are buying it. But I still say that in Nashville, when you're spending $100 for a steak, at some point in time, you got to pay the piper. And with credit card rates, the credit card debt at $1.3 trillion and interest rates on credit cards at an all-time record high, you're going to have to pay the piper at some point in time. I can't get behind it that well.
And beans and OJ futures. Any thoughts on those sides?
Yeah, I mean, I think beans will fall in line with the weather here this year. We've already seen a big jump anyway off the bottom. For both corn and beans. We were below $10 in beans for a little while there. We've rallied well through that now, and we just went through $5 in corn. Just be careful about getting too short here and starting to pick a top, because it's been easy because we've been so negative. It was only 4 years ago we were talking $6, $7, $8 for corn. We were below $4 just recently, and we rallied $1 off the lows. I just can't get out from underneath a lot of the research that I saw from these folks that look at a lot of different things, not just the numbers and Fibonacci's things. They have actual 700-800 year research, and it could be a year that you see some explosive movement to the upside. Number one, and number two, then you're gonna see great, Monsanto, some of these pesticide companies are going to do well. You're going to see Caterpillar and Deere do well. I mean, there's some people lining up to do well off of this, and I think it feels right now like that could happen. It really does.
He's the cow guy. We're pre-market prep. It's a Friday. Thanks for joining us, Scott. We'll dial you up again next month.
All righty, brother.
All right, folks.
Thanks, Scott.
We are just hanging out here, Dennis. Kind of quiet, just meandering here in the 6140 handle. Really nothing in here. Just above the pre-market low, and 12 handles above that potential double top. So that's what we're looking at in the futures. One more earnings stock here in the chip sector or the calculator sector. TXN trading in the red here. Let me get you the numbers for TXN. I believe they reported after the close, and TXN, looking at their report, a lot of numbers here. They beat by a dime. They beat on sales. I guess they're not too happy with the lower guidance. Triple D, any action in Texas Instruments?
Yeah, it initially popped. You won't see it again. The algos get it wrong here. Oh, you do see it. They initially popped this, and it was up for they literally sweep out the buck, and then there's no follow through. This is what I talk about, with the algos, and they're dumb sometimes because they're like, oh, it's a good report. They sweep it all out, so you have nothing left in the book here, so it's all air below you. Then you need those follow through buyers. Well, it's better be right. It's a good report to get those follow through buyers, because otherwise you're going to get the gap fill. The gap fill happened in 10 seconds, bang, right down and comes in, and then the algos are probably scrambling for cover here. So, like I keep saying, everybody thinks, oh, algorithmic trading, how can you beat them? How can you be better than the algos? I'll tell you, I think I make more money in this environment, this algorithmic environment, than I did before. Because they're honestly, when they're on the wrong side, they're really wrong because they go after it. Certain things they're never wrong on. And again, everybody thinks, oh, it's Citadel. Citadel is a sweep out the buck on Texas Instruments. They're not even doing that at all. That's not them. It's somebody that's running some type of hedge fund or something, or, just okay, we just buy all the good earnings, we sell all the bad earnings, and, they got this algorithmic strategy. Sometimes they work, sometimes they're right. Probably in the case that they were doing Netflix, they probably made a lot of money. So maybe they make more than they lose. But I tell you, they lose on a lot of them too. Anyways, Texas Instruments right back down. coming back in. You got some support down here. This is
Yeah.
not one of the darlings, though. Like, this is not one of the stocks that have just been like loved forever. I mean, 4-year performance of Texas Instruments is 0, folks. It's up nothing in the last 4 years. So, I mean, that's a consideration.
It's one of those serial underperformers, and like just reading the notes from the report yesterday, they said that the chip maker gave a forecast that points to ongoing weakness in key end markets and higher manufacturing costs, and the analysts don't like their gross margins are underperforming their peers. So I always like to, whenever we have like one of these names that reported, and as we're just talking about, it's been an underperformer, it's been a tough stock, but I look at not Texas Instruments, but Taiwan Semiconductor. They had the good earnings report. I think you stick with Taiwan Semiconductor, and if you're looking for one that's gotten beaten up, so that's TSM. I think if you also want to take a look at another one, so I'll just wait till you get the chart up there. But
Sure.
this TSM is just quietly like it's consolidating around the highs. So I would stick with this. Their numbers were very good, and I think you got one of the leaders here. Another one too that I think people are looking at too on the dip, and the way it reacted yesterday was ALAB. Right, this is a more spec name. This is Astera Labs. So a newer name. Notice, like, I guess you don't have the 50-day moving out here. Look, can I'm going to share.
Yeah,
my
grab
chart
it. Grab it.
Yeah,
Just go
grab
ahead.
it.
Yep.
real quick.
We may have to add the 50-day for Christian onto our chart.
It's
Me and
so
Joel have always
important.
been anti-moving averages, but I
Oh,
mean, I
boy.
respect you. I respect the people who trade the moving averages.
So just looking at the
I don't
daily
think Trade
chart.
Station has that. No, I'm
Ha!
joking.
Of course they could.
Just looking at the daily chart, and this is one of those that's been like a very like loved like retail stock in here. But notice it comes in yesterday. Look at the candle yesterday, right at that 50-day moving average. And the reason why I pay attention to the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average is because institutional traders pay attention to them, and they will buy at the 50-day moving average. They will buy at the 200-day moving average. So it comes up. It's not a coincidence that you see like a name will go lower like this on the intraday with the 50-day moving average, and then come right back. So we like dips, right? We want market dips, and so this is one that I'm watching. I have not been. I rode this name on the upside, but once it kind of broke down in here, I kind of got out of it. But I'm getting interested in this one again too. So that's
you buy the loved stocks on dips, and it feels like it's the right thing to do. I mean, in some cases, momentum breaks, and again, at a certain point in time, you got to say it doesn't work. But the buy the dip mentality, with stocks and uptrends, has worked, since the beginning of time. I mean, it's not just a momentum strategy. Even you're buying the dip, it's actually a contrarian strategy. But, looking at that overall trend and buying strength or buying weakness on strong stocks has always been a good idea. Even Palantir recently, Joel, which your punt was doing so well, and now Palantir has come all the way back here from those losses. Again, you just can't keep a good stock down. And, sometimes it doesn't even necessarily mean to be a good company at a reasonable valuation. It's just a good stock. ALAB is one of those that's talked about all the Reddit boards, talked about in chats. It's loved as well. So it fits that description that's likely a stock that gets bought on dips. Now, is there a point in time where momentum breaks? I mean, maybe that's why you got to look at the 50-day moving average, or you got to look, when you're seeing that overall trend, the longer term trend start to break, because these things can, obviously fall significantly if they have. But again, you got to tie in the fundamentals too. A lot of times you see these earnings, these stock starts breaking when they announce like a little bit of a disappointing earnings, or they announce a little bit of light guidance or something like that. I mean, that's why tying in the fundies with the technicals just makes you such a whole trader. There's so many traders that are just tied just to technicals. I don't look at any fundamentals. I don't care what any economic report says. I don't care anything about what Trump says. All I care about is the charts. That's all fine and dandy, and the charts do tell a tale. But I think when you do the combo approach and you use all of your tools that are available to you, you become a better all-around trader. So I think, a lot of times when you're looking, when stocks are dipping on macro, on market effects, where the S&Ps are coming down, the good stocks going down just because they're overbought, those are better dips to buy. When stocks are dipping because they're cutting guidance, those are tougher ones to bounce back. Just like EA, cutting guidance, stock, hard for it to bounce back. It's hard when stocks are cutting guidance. American Express dip this morning isn't a guidance cut. It's simply a stock that's overbought. So keep that in mind. When they start cutting guidance, they often don't bounce as well as the ones that are just going down because of overall S&P market action.
Fundamental information. Let's stick with the good here. And Dennis, I know maybe we can make this a little bit of a teaching moment here. With Twilio, the company they've got a couple upgrades, but they came out and good guidance above estimates on year-to-year revenue increase. I guess they did this at a conference or an investor day, Dennis. How did you handle this one?
Well, I didn't know about the investor day again, and I actually went short this stock and got the crap kicked out of me. I actually was pretty decent about it. As soon as I started seeing it was fundamental news, I just started lifting offers to get out. So I'm like, you can't even mess around with that. And then they announced the buyback and stuff. I was long gone by the time they announced the buyback. But as soon as like, oh man, this is guidance, because originally it was like slightly bid up, like it was trading like 116. I was like, it kind of looked like just somebody just wanted in, and they did obviously want in. But then the bids were coming back. I was like, oh, this is news. And then boom, Investors Day, a presentation. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know Twilio was presenting. So that's bad on me that I didn't know. So anyways, what do you do when you get caught on the wrong side of the trade? You get out as quickly as you can. I shorted 116.5, I think is where I was shorting, which is right near the old highs, like 117, 118. And I covered 121, so I lost 5 points on this. I know I'm the only trader ever, to lose money on a trade, but, just a joke. But anyways, I ate the 5 points. Thank goodness I did. I covered at 121. It's 134. So, I mean, you got to eat the loss, move on, especially when you're wrong and you miss something. You miss something, shame on me. Move on, you live to trade another day. Brentster, you found an excellent place for us to track this stuff, and I bookmarked it here today. If Brent can take over the controls, I know he's in the background just to show. Maybe Christian's going to give some comments on Twilio, but I want to show where we can get this information of these Investor Day presentations here because it's very important. So Brentster in the background is going to get that up on the screen. Christian, what are your thoughts here on Twilio as it breaks out to new highs?
I'll go back to that chart. Put that chart back.
Yeah, put the chart back on, and then Brent's going to show.
So because I like how you've these different time frames just put things in perspective. So I like doing it this way. I like looking at that 1 hour. I think that's the 1 hour chart that you've got on the left.
I will make it a 1 hour for you. There, boom! Look at that.
Yeah, well, it's very similar. But yeah, I mean, so
put a little dot where DDD sell short, DDD buys.
Yeah.
Go,
looking at the top right chart, which doesn't have the pre-market doesn't have the activity, but I mean, it's been basing there a bit. It's been basing in an uptrend and consolidating, and that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite patterns that I've talked about quite a bit recently. Is like things going sideways and pausing a little bit, and then taking that next leg higher. Because if you look at that, bottom right chart, I don't know where the charts went, but if you look at the bottom right chart, you're going to see that Twilio has a long way from where it was at previous highs. So just
there it is.
Yeah,
we'll show it to you again.
So that puts things in perspective. I mean, the stock was much higher previously. So that little move that you see in 2024 on the bottom of that right panel, right, puts things in perspective. While it's been a huge move, the stock could have a lot more to go before it kind of catches up with those. I'm not saying it goes back to the past highs, but the runway is pretty large if it wants to make a big move.
I'm with you here, Christian. And you know what else is going to be a driver is analysts here. And we're going to get that teaching moment here in a second, but we've got some time because we don't have an 8:35 guest. The analyst community we know can continue to drive price as well. And you know what happens when a stock comes out with good guidance and starts gapping up. The analysts can't help themselves. So just going through it here quickly, we got Twilio, price target raise, Stifel, Scotiabank, Wells Fargo, Oppenheimer, JMP Securities, Mizuho, Barclays, Piper, RBC, UBS, all raise a price target this morning. Baird flat out upgrades the stock to outperform. So, I mean, this is a continued driver of it. To your point, Christian, it's so nice when the technicals line up with the trade, and whoever was buying this last night, geniuses. Obviously, I was on the wrong side. I knew I was on the wrong side. I should have flipped long. I actually even considered it. Like Joel says, that's a hard thing to do. Eat a short and then flip long. It would have been awesome to flip long at 121 though, because I'd be up at 134 here now. And I think this is the kind of stock that probably gets bought on dips now. One, to Christian's point, it's very beat up from where it was 3 or 4 years ago, so there's lots of room to the upside. Two, you're coming out with a buyback and raising guidance, so the fundies are all pretty good here too. I think dips probably get bought in this name, get it back to that 125 or 130 area, maybe in a market sell-off or something. I don't know if you're going to get it. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to go there, so I wouldn't be short the name. But if you do get that dip, I think this is one I'd have on my shopping list.
Very little here in the monthlies. All right.
Let's go to the Brent Slava. Brent, can you bring that back up?
I got it.
Okay.
It is.
Joel's
Where'd it
bring it
go?
up.
I thought I just saw it for a second here.
It was up there.
Yeah, hold on one second. I did pull it up. Let me move this over here. Can everyone see this?
This is at Market Chameleon, and they have a list of everything that's happening from presentations to conference calls every single day. And, these investors, so a lot of this is just earnings. So you're looking like, oh my gosh, 70 things. What am I going to, I can't look through all that. Well, if you just look through, most of these are just the earnings because we're in earnings season here now. But I mean, right there, you're highlighting. Can you highlight the investor presentation one from Twilio? It was yesterday. Would have been yesterday.
Okay, so that would have been okay. I'm not that familiar with the site, but
Brent just gave it to us here too. So we're just looking through here. Company events calendar is what this is at marketchameleon.com. So we're giving you guys a shout out there, Market Chameleon. This is great stuff. I've been looking for a place to find it. So if you hit January 23rd, you can clearly see. If I would have known this, I would have been like not fading moves because obviously they say stuff during investors' presentations here. But yesterday, Twilio had Investor Day, 2025 Investor Day. Event time was 4:30. So, I mean, it's right up there on the screen. Today, if we're looking at today's events here, it's a lot of earnings. I don't see any Investor Day here on anything yet. I'm just scrolling through. But, I mean, keep an eye on this calendar. It's important here. So, obviously, lots of earnings calls, lots of different stuff. There's lots of, Impressions Expo. There's lots of things here. So, you got to decipher through it. But what I would say is when you see a major tech company that's widely followed in social media like Twilio, and it has Twilio Investor Day, write that one down. That's an important one. Like Impressions Expo, I don't even worry about that. So what I would highlight here, if I'm going through all this stuff, is look for those investor days because we need to know those, and it looks like Market Chameleon's tracking it for us.
Oh, I was just saying, go ahead, Christian.
I was going to say that this is a great point because these stocks can really move, and we've seen some of these some names like really move even before their earnings reports. So I mean, like earnings reports are the obvious thing to make sure that you're aware of when the company's reporting earnings. But these reports, you can't downplay it enough because Twilio is a great example. Knowing when there's a investor presentation or like the shareholder meeting, these things you can really get some surprises out of the stocks, and that's a really nice handy website. So thank you, Brett, for bringing that to everybody's attention. To have these things, and you can even like if you want to play the game too, where like hey, you put on a call position like ahead of if nobody's talking about the stock that they have their investor day, then sometimes the bigger move that you're going to get. So I mean, this is a great like trade school mention that having these on your calendar can really kind of give you a heads up that a big move is possible.
I'm going to continue to use that, and obviously Brent's still working in the background, find us more resources as well. So yeah, thanks, Brent. Joel, you were going to say something.
I was just gonna. Oh, they gave the exact time on that, and so I was just looking at the chart here,
and I had no idea that Twilio was even presenting. So I mean, if you're going to trade stocks, especially after hours, it's important to know this kind of stuff. So I mean, that's just another thing to check. Obviously, I have a whole sheet, man. And I mean, like I've shown you before, like this is like my scratch chicken notes, like doctor style. But I write down all the main companies that I trade that are reporting, what's coming next week, what's going ex-dividend. I write down, even what stocks, that Kramer's focusing on because sometimes those can move too, or stocks are going to be, on CNBC, like the Oracle the other day. We knew, that Trump was going to be talking about that. I write that down too. All market trading is information dissemination. And what that is like understanding there's certain pockets of information that are going to move stocks. And when that information comes disseminated into the market, you need to be prepared for it. So when it's scheduled, it's very much, it's just so important to have that and know that this stuff is scheduled. So like an investor's day, that is scheduled information dissemination. It's going to move price. Maybe they said something bad that could have went the other way. But I mean, obviously it was good in this case. And I mean, investors' days, sometimes they do tend to go up. Sometimes stocks run into investor days too. But a lot of times, like a Twilio one, people just aren't paying attention to it. And I think in this case, a lot of people probably didn't even know it.
Should that be a new segment coming up? The Dennis Chicken Scratch segment? Like you show your sheet.
I have done that for years. I have a sheet every single day.
Don't show it now.
Don't show it now. With all my chicken scratch notes. And somebody says something in the chat. Like if somebody says, "Oh, check this chart out in the chat," and I'm like, I'll look at it. And I was like, "Oh, I like that chart." I rate it right over I'll rate it right over here on the left. So I rate it like right over here.
Don't show
and these are stocks that I'm like, okay, this is like maybe shopping list for the day. I just wrote chart. So I don't have anything on the shopping list here for today. So, but I do that every day. Like yesterday, I had, I've had a few on there, like, but just stocks that are like, interesting to me. It may not even be a buy. It could be a short too, but just something that I see setting up. But I mean, the biggest thing is I have a pen in my hand as a trader all the freaking time. I don't know if I've ever said that. I'm 10 years on the show. I always have a pen sitting here ready, and I always have a sheet of paper sitting here in front of me. Yeah, we're technology, you use paper, you use pens and stuff. I tell you, when you write something down, I was my kid studying for a test yesterday. I was like, he's taking notes on his cell phone. I was like, it works so much better when you actually write it down on paper. Like you actually take the time and write it down on paper. As a trader, for sure, pen in hand. I mean, this is just all little, it's just habits, good habits to be in, understanding, what the information, what's happening. So you don't get taken by surprise. See, Joel, you always have a pen right there handy at your desk too, taking notes.
I do.
Maybe we're old school. Maybe this is
right here. I
got
my notebook right here.
Look at. So if you're not doing that, holy crap, man, do that at a bare minimum. First thing, you're new to trading, get a pen and paper, start writing stuff down. Somebody says something cool, write it down. Christian says something that you like, write it down. Here, I'm writing it down. Have a pen and paper. Okay, no, I'm just writing that down. But I mean, write that down. Have that. Pen is mightier than the sword. Donk and Dave, absolutely.
Yep. Got some nice comments from Donk and Dave yesterday. Really appreciate all the comments I've been getting about the Brentster wrap up. So keep that coming. Keep the good information coming. You know what stock we haven't talked about in a while? Boeing.
We talk about it all the time, but maybe been a few days. Boeing never has good news. Never. But the stock always fades. Now it's just like at a point where it's like there's so much bad news priced into this company. It doesn't even matter when they lower guidance. Like, I mean, it gets bought. So it's like, I just got done saying something earlier in the show. When stock lowers guidance, it's hard for it to bounce back. Unless it's Boeing, because all it does is lower guidance. All it does is say bad stuff. And people are just exhausted. This stock has seller exhaustion. Write that down. Seller exhaustion. That's why Boeing, people are like, why is this not down more? They're cutting guidance and the quarter's going to be crap. I did Phil LeBeau on CNBC saying, this guidance is terrible. That was what he said yesterday. That's terrible stuff. But you know what? Algos sell it right off. Oh, 174, 32, 10. But they lower guys. It's going to get killed. Now, the algos are too stupid to realize there's been seller exhaustion on this stock for 6 months. The stock comes out, tires fall off the freaking planes, and they buy them back. I mean, this stock, bad news Boeing. It is. It's bad news Boeing. But what I'll say is this dips are getting bought on this stock. I think if you got the bearish thesis and you're shorting this into the sun, you're on the wrong side of the trade. There's probably a play to actually just be long Boeing, because if they ever say anything good, the stock's going to gap up like 25 points, because the bad news just gets bought too. I mean, it's just seller exhaustion. That's what Boeing has.
And it had a good day yesterday too. So it's so funny. Like, there's so many traps with this stock. The stock got going nicely. I believe it was on GE yesterday. It made a really nice move yesterday. And you start, like, every time this thing starts to come up, you're like, hey, maybe it's Boeing's time, and maybe they can kind of get out of the gutter. And then they come out with news that, of course, brings the stock down and like erases that. But to your point, it's also like, it went all the way down to, I think, 170, 171, 172, and it's not getting that hard selling pressure anymore. So I I'm tempted in this, and
Me
again,
too.
like I've brought this up a couple times. Like, if you want to take a shot on something where you don't know because it has been plagued by what was it, bad news Boeing. I that's very funny. But I like, why not just go long? Like, go out, give yourself some time, and buy like a call option or something like that. So that's why where the options market exists. You want to take a shot at something where you've got headline risk, and you can't really control the headline risk. You can't control if there's going to be, God forbid, there's something else that goes wrong with a Boeing plane, or just their earnings numbers. They're just plagued by this type of stuff. But to you're making an excellent point here, is that the stock isn't falling as much on bad news, and even it has had some bad news over the last couple months. There's been some plane incidents, and it's not falling like it was when it was back around that 350 300 350 400 level. So it is appearing that it's trying to turn, and they do have a new CEO, guys, right? Don't they have somebody new?
Did they get the new CEO? I always forget. Boeing, probably.
I think so. I think they had a
CEO.
change, I think around like 3 months ago or something like that. So again, you got to be patient with these things too. Like, this is not a stock where you can watch like every tick of the stock and say like, oh, now it's going to turn around. It's going to take some time for this. So go out,
Kelly Ortberg, is that the new CEO?
Yeah.
It's been there around for a little while. August 8th, 2024. So about 6 months ago, looks like.
More than 3 months, but
yeah, but still, I know you're right there. 6 months. We won't argue for 3 months.
And that's the way. And again, like, I'm just gonna say one more time, like, that's a good way to play, considering the group is so strong. Look at XAR again. This is, it's been one of my favorite areas of the
group
market.
Is strong.
So there's this opportunity cost, like, because if you go into Boeing, like, if you're watching this, every day for like a turnaround, and you're missing the boat, or you're missing the plane, I should say, in this situation, because the whole group is so strong. If you're sitting in Boeing and you're saying, hey, this is the good buy because it's down, you're missing all the stocks that have been doing really well. And we talked about GE yesterday. Another one that's has been a small cap name, HWM. This is Howmet Aerospace. This is another one that I played. I'm not long this name anymore, but I was long a week ago. I caught the nice move up. But hey, instead of contemplating like, oh, I'm going to put a big stock position on in Boeing, I think you play it with a call. And I'm actually, in this way, you put that call on, for like 6 months or a year, and then you don't look at it.
That's not a bad way to do it too, when you got a long-term thesis that you're ready to play out, and then you don't get shaken out by all these little dips here. But I mean, we got the president to your overall thesis here about space, and like, obviously, these names here. We got the president talking about, going to the moon and going to Mars and doing all these things. It's good for all these names. Look at Lunar here today, Intuitive Machines. I mean, this is one we've been in, but obviously, I've sold out of it, because I sell everything too soon. But I'd pick this up at $6 or $7. We talked about that. I ended up selling the last of my stock at 16. It's 22 here now, but again, it's looking good. It's going higher, making new highs here right now. Rocket Labs, your dip got bought big time there yesterday, Christian. It was down $3-4. They can't even keep it down there for a day, and it's back. And I know valuation, but again, when the story is hot, write this down, get your pen out, it's coming. When the story is hot, valuation doesn't matter at all. That space story is hot right now. Boeing, is still a space story. So, I mean, that's got that going for it to a certain extent. I know, SpaceX has to go rescue the astronauts at Boeing stranded up there. They're doing everything wrong. But there's still a space story here in Boeing as well that's been forgotten. So, I mean, if we're really going to be, in the next 4 years, talking about expanding beyond the Earth, or like looking, at different opportunities out in space, Boeing's probably a part of that as well.
Okay. When a stock's in the dumps, you look for a catalyst, right? And there's no stock that got beat up on their earnings. Moderna trading up 46 cents here, and well, at 217 yesterday, there was news out. Larry Ellison discussed AI in cancer victims. Boom. catches a nice bid here, and also the stock made, novel virus concerns. I haven't heard too much about that, but there you go. We talk about a gap fill. You're getting that at 41.79. I think this is a little bit different of a gap fill than the Oracle, but just be aware that trading up 46 cents for Moderna mRNA.
It's been a brutal story. But one thing it's got is they are talking about, I watched the Trump conference with Ellison up there and Altman and the SoftBank CEO. They were talking about mRNA stuff. And and Moderna popped a little bit on that, but then it just comes right back down because it's so hated. And obviously it was starting to look productive at the beginning of 2025, the whole laggards to leaders theme. And then they came out with the guidance and it was brutal and they gapped it down. Well, you know what's happened? They bought it back. And I just wonder a little bit right now if Moderna doesn't have a potential turnaround story here in it with, Allison and AI and talking mRNA and these viruses, this novo virus coming on here too. That's the kind of, environment when we start talking about these viruses that Moderna starts to work in. The problem is you just don't know when the next, guidance cut or this, and the company's been a cash burn situation for a while here now. So fundies are not fantastic here, but is there a story here? Yeah, I think so. Would I be interested in trying to play this name? Maybe. I have no position at this time.
I was just going to bring up another stock too that's beaten up. This news came out a couple of days ago. I don't think we covered it, but some of these I guess the appointments for the administration, they're starting to disclose some of their holdings, and the stock so it came out that RFK discloses that he has a holding in CRISPR. So
Oh, wow.
this was 2 days ago. The stock went up 10%, but it just, to your point about Moderna, it's got a lot of overhead resistance, overhead supply.
Gotta get through that.
But this is what it's kind of makes you think that he's got a position in this, and why does he have a position in it, and so forth. So I do pay attention to where some of these administrators or some of these folks have what they have positions in. We certainly we discussed the Pelosi trade, and TEM is still good. It still looks pretty good, by the way. That stock's made a big move, but I would put this I've got an alert on CRISPR at 45.40. Again, it's gone down a lot, but it's one of those that, hey, I'll pay attention to it down here and see if it can get going. What do you guys think about?
I think, when you get, the potential for stories, I think it's important to look at, the people who are going to be involved in this administration and the companies they support. I think having a list of those companies is a great idea, Christian. So, it doesn't hurt at all. And when you see a stock pop up because RFK's got a position and then it pulls back and gives you an in, it's not a bad idea. Again, when you get good news, pops 10%, but then leaks a little bit. Sometimes it's the leak is the buying opportunity here. And all of these stocks have just the whole biotech sector has just been in shambles. It has been just the worst place to be. So, that's tough. It's a contrarian trade altogether. But XBI is starting to perk up a little bit here too. IBB, I know you always go to that one, Joel. That's the bigger companies. Those are the companies that obviously are going to be doing the buying. So, again, that's been beat up too, though. All drug stocks, biotechs, is RFK the right person, for these companies? That's all to be determined. But I think, jumping in and saying, hey, if RFK's in this stock, maybe I want to be too. I don't think that's a bad strategy.
No, these things they're shaping up. XBI, I know I always go to the other one. Just gave you that great head fake right at the end of last year, that major resistance there, just above $100 in the XBI. Let's just finish.
Before we move on from this drug conversation, I'm going to throw it out here. And we're starting to see Moderna pop up here with this mRNA stuff. We're starting to see, a little bit of life in the biotechs to a certain extent. Big pharma has been kind of all over the place. What about Pfizer? Is there a place for Pfizer, which is ex-dividend today? So it's not down 40 cents, folks. It's actually ex-dividend here today. It's got a 6.6% dividend. I've been long it. It's been an epic disaster. But as a trade here, stop yourself out at the lows. So, if you put it on here, if it goes down to 24.48, give yourself that $1.50 here. If it's down to there, maybe you're saying it's not. But if we're going to worry about this novo virus, and if Moderna is going to start perking up here, Is there a place where Pfizer could have a little bit of a story here? Not saying, long term, but like right now, and at this time, could Pfizer be a little bit of a turnaround story here too? Christian, I want to get your thoughts here. Tough stock. This is not a Christian Fromhertz stock.
This is a tough one because like to your point, like you need some catalysts, and it's down a lot, and maybe like that's the attractiveness too. Like maybe they will have a catalyst that will get the stock going. I don't know what it's going to be, but
Let's go with virus. I'm giving you the catalyst. So
okay,
right now, I'm not even saying I would not be throwing this out here. I haven't thrown it out for a while in a long time if it wasn't for that. But is there a place here, this novovirus and Pfizer? Because we're talking about, Moderna perking up here. Well, Pfizer is its brother-in-law. I know Pfizer does a lot of other things, but Pfizer's been its brother-in-law. I mean, you could go BNTX too if you want to go a little bit more. Maybe that gets a little more love. BNTX had a pretty damn good day yesterday. I'm just saying Pfizer's completely been forgotten here. So you have BNTX, which obviously the partnerships with the mRNA, technology here, Pfizer and BioNTech, and then you have Moderna. So I mean, the catalyst here is: are we worry about this novovirus? Is this a serious worry? Is this something that's going to be forgotten next week? If something's being forgotten next week, you're probably going to lose on the Moderna, the BNTX, and the Pfizer. But if something that's going to start popping up in the headlines and people are going to start talking about it more, I don't think Moderna and BNTX go and Pfizer doesn't. Yeah, Christian, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's why I was giving you the catalyst. I was jumping in to give you a potential catalyst.
I passed for now on the
stock. Passes on that one. That's good. That's allowed. That's allowed. I'm actually maybe going to buy Pfizer for a trade here today. I have it in the long-term account. I might buy it today. I'm writing it down. I don't know if I'm going to go with it or not, but I feel like this novovirus thing's going to start getting a little bit more headlines. I think Pfizer could get a lift from it.
A couple notes here on Pfizer. Number one, there's a quad top here at 2660. So if you get to that, you knock out that seller, you got some room. I think if you get to that, I'm not even worried about 27. So you got to knock out that seller. And the weirdest thing, I don't dream about stocks very much, but I had a dream about Pfizer last night. And it wasn't like a buy or a sell. They did a 2-for-1 stock split, and I was like, I'm like, what are they? I'm like, it has to be a reverse stock split. It has to be a reverse. And no, and Brester kept on telling me, no, it's a 2-for-1 stock split. And I'm like, and I was like, so mad. I'm like, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? And then lo and behold, you bring it up on the show. So that's
well, I line up with Joel's dreams.
Yeah, that's so weird. All right, it's the end of the week. It's been a great week in the markets. We got all-time highs just above us here. Dennis, give us your strategy, for the open here, Christian, and then I'll wrap things up and give you the guests for Monday.
Banks showing some weakness here. We do have some interesting imbalances. People like it when we give this information, so I'm going to continue to give it. If you don't like it, I'll stop giving it. Citigroup, 160,000 to sell. That stands out like a sore thumb. Stock is trading down 48 cents in the pre-market. Ignore those FINRA trades that just happened. That's not where the current market is. Goldman Sachs has been having sell imbalances almost every morning. I always track those trends. It's got 68,000 to sell here again. It's interesting because they come and they buy them right back, it seems like. But the other day, Goldman Sachs opened down like 10 points and then dropped another 10. Just on nothing, and then they bought it right back. It was so interesting. Just a violent move. You can actually see maybe the move from the other day if you look at that left chart there. The dips seem to get bought here, but the sell imbalances are real. They're knocking the price down. Oracle has bounced back a certain extent. Somebody wants it this morning. They want in 143,000 to buy. So the dip is getting bought here on Oracle for the last couple of days here. I was trying to play the short side on that, but didn't work out as well as it should have because I didn't get the trade. Verizon, 111,000 to buy. That is trading up on earnings, which we did not get to. Verizon earnings were good. We should have covered it, but we just didn't get to it.
Okay. All right. Christian, final thoughts for today?
Yeah, I'll bring up a chart here too.
Nice.
Software. I'm looking, of course, Oracle is a big name in software, but I started to kind of because software got beat up there for a little bit, and Oracle also was the killer on the way down for this too. But I'm looking at a couple companies like Team. Some of these names, they just got back above that 50-day moving average and started to turn back higher again. So I was playing with a name yesterday too called ESTC. But it didn't close exactly the way I wanted it to. But starting to see some of these tech, people kind of got a little bit dark on software a little bit. So that's what I'm watching today. I'm also watching BE, which had a really nice bullish engulfing candle yesterday. This is more in the alternative energy space. We know that those nuclear plays went nuclear yesterday, Oklo and so forth. So I'm keeping an eye on what those names did yesterday. I mean, there's a monster breakout in some of these things. You want momentum, go to Oklo, and what's the other one? NNE. And yeah, I mean, these things just had colossal days yesterday. So I'm keeping those on the radar for today.
Okay, we're in the red here. We started in the red yesterday. We had a super strong close. So let's get through that pre-market high. We always talk about the propensity of the market to make the highs or lows for the week on Friday. Well, we already have that with that high. So let's get through that 51.56 area and then blue skies ahead. Actual all-time high print in the S&P is in the March contract is 81 and a quarter. On the downside, I mean, you can't really get the short scalpel out. You take out that pre-market low, maybe you got a little bit of a downside. But right now, finding a hole, we've traded. I mean, I don't think we have traded out of the 61.40 handle. Let's see. Let's go 15 further, almost the entire show here. So just finding a home between 61.40 and 61.48 on Monday. We will be joined by Tracy Raniak, Zacks Research. Always good with the fundamental information, taking a look at Q4 earnings season so far and looking ahead for her thoughts on the year. Folks, thanks for joining us here on Pre-Market Prep.